Today we're going to expose some of the most outrageous clauses builders use in their contracts. We're uncovering what these clauses are and how they can be used to benefit the builder. After watching this video, you're never going to look at new construction the same way again. Well, hello, this is Wendy Pinnell, and Steve Noviello with Fox 4 News describes how a North Texas family says they have a warning for anyone who's buying a home from a builder. He explains how just days before closing on their forever home, their builder backed out. Turns out the builder's contract they were required to sign left them with virtually no protection. Sound far-fetched? A little hard to believe? Well, it's not. Okay, it's called the Convenience Clause, and it's in use today with builders right here in the Metroplex. Noviello reports that this particular builder, Glacier Homes, Kindred Homes, had a clause in their contract that said seller maintains the right to terminate the contract for convenience and without regard to fault or breach. Noviello explains that this means with no notice and for no reason at all, the seller can walk away. Well, that was 2022, right? I mean, surely things have changed now. Well, not for Antares Homes. Paragraph 14 of their contract states seller may also terminate this contract for seller convenience for any or no reason at all. In the same paragraph, it states, regardless of whether such termination is accepted by buyer shall have no right to specific performance. Antares isn't alone with their convenience clause. Normandy Homes has a similar clause in paragraph 8 of their contract. It reads, seller may terminate this contract for any or no reason at all for seller's own convenience. In his news article, Noviello consulted attorney Jason Friedman, who said this is basically an agreement to hold you hostage. He continued, if you're signing a contract like this, you could be homeless. Noviello continues, unlike a Texas Real Estate Commission promulgated sales contract, which offers protection for both buyer and seller, Friedman says the builder contract left them vulnerable. And really, that's the gist of it. The TREC promulgated contract is designed to be neutral. Okay, it has specific clauses that allow buyers and sellers to withdraw from a contract, but again, that protection is neutral. I mean, which is all well and good for pre-owned homes, right? But new construction isn't like that. Your new construction builders are generally large corporations with attorneys, and those attorneys represent the builder. I mean, it goes to follow that the contracts are specifically designed to benefit the builder. I asked sales consultants at both Antares and Normandy why they had the convenience clause, and their answer really did make sense. Okay, neither knew the other, and yet they both had the same explanation. They said sometimes you have a buyer who you can't please. As the builder, you've done everything you can, but you realize you just can't please the buyer and you need to get out of the contract. Well, that explanation makes sense. Okay, but here's the thing. Bloomfield, Grand, and Perry Homes all have clauses that provide verbiage that works and accomplishes the same thing without using a convenience clause. So they've solved the scenario the Antares and Normandy sales consultants described, but they've done it without the convenience clause. So good job, Bloomfield, Grand, and Perry. All right, so that was the convenience clause. Moving on to outrageous clause number 2. Let's talk about the escalation clause. This one is a doozy and particularly egregious, but thankfully it isn't as common anymore. We have run into it though. In fact, recently we were negotiating a sale with Normandy Homes when I asked about this clause in their contracts. The sales consultant responded by explaining, basically that she'd been in the business for many years and this clause was in most builder contracts. Well, no, it actually isn't, but let's dig into what an escalation clause is and then I'll show you what it looks like in a contract. William Ryan Homes is a builder in the Dallas area and they warn you against the escalation clause. They describe how some home builders are using an escalation clause, which means the contract price of your new home can change or escalate based on the builder's cost increases for materials. Okay, does that actually happen, right? Did you know your home price could change? Meaning you could suddenly not even qualify for the mortgage on it. Yeah. WR Homes explains that home buyers who agree to an escalation clause are sometimes finding that when their closing occurs, the price of their home has increased by as much as tens of thousands of dollars. So what does this look like in a contract? Well, Normandy Homes has a section entitled Escalation. In it, you're going to find that dreaded escalation clause. It says, in the event that there is a price increase in any construction materials in excess of 10% from the price of similar materials purchased by seller in approximately the same time frame, the excess charges may be passed through to the purchaser. During my meeting with Normandy Homes, the sales consultant explained the escalation clause and then said that almost all builders have it in their contracts, which is actually the opposite, is actually true. There aren't that many builders that include this clause anymore. And in fact, during my research for this video, I didn't find another single builder contract that included the clause. WR Homes put it this way. They say, home builder William Ryan Homes has chosen a different path, sticking to the contract price regardless of the continued increases in materials. And they continued, once home buyers sign the contract, the price is set and guaranteed. There are no escalation clauses. So kudos to William Ryan Homes. Awesome job with that disclosure. And not so much for Normandy Homes. How about let's get that clause out of there? Speaking of which, I did want to touch on this topic. If you're told by a sales consultant that all builders have this, or they may say, well, we have experience in the industry, which kind of implies that you don't, and so you should trust them. I would really encourage you not to be cowed by that, okay? Use your common sense and trust your gut. When we were reviewing these contracts, our agent Blake said, I would never sign that. And he's right, I wouldn't either. Here's a rule of thumb. Responses such as every builder does it, or I have experience and this is how the industry works, just keep in mind those are not actual explanations, okay? They're meant to be more intimidating than anything else. So you've got to see past that. And really, this is one among so many reasons why you need representation when you're buying new construction. When our clients decide to buy new construction, we ask that they not sign anything until we've reviewed the contract together. Then we spend literally hours reading every single line of that contract. Then we meet up with our buyers and read it all over again with them. Not every agent is going to go through that level of detail, but we at home in Dallas absolutely insist upon it. Speaking of which, if we sound like the right fit for you and your move to Dallas, you're definitely going to want to check out our Let's Find Home questionnaire that you will find in the description section. Moving on to outrageous clause number 3, let's talk about how builders deal with property taxes. Property taxes in a home sale are going to be prorated up to the day of the sale. And what we mean by that is the seller pays for the property taxes up until the day the property is sold, then the buyer takes on the property taxes from there. Now this is pretty straightforward when you're buying a pre-owned home because the home's value isn't going to change astronomically from one year to the next. But it becomes really sticky with new construction, and every builder is going to deal with it differently. The value of a 60 by 120 patch of dirt is generally going to be worth somewhere around like $50,000, okay, to the tax appraiser. It's unimproved, right? It's just land, pretty much, it's just dirt, all right? But then the beautiful new construction transformation takes place and you have this absolutely stunning new home. In other words, now it's known as land plus improvement. In the eyes of the property tax assessors, the value has just gone from $50,000 to, let's just say, like $1 million over the course of 1 year. When closing day arrives, the title company is going to obtain a tax certificate and the property taxes are going to be prorated. But here's your problem. Many times the new value isn't reflected at closing, but it will be reflected by the time tax bills come due at the end of the year. So let's just say you're buying in Collin County in the city of Prosper. You're in Prosper ISD in the Collin County Water District in Collin College, and the appraisal district has your home listed at the land value of $50,000. The taxes at closing will be $1,593.28 for the entire year. Now this will be prorated between the builder as the seller and you as the buyer. If you close in March, for example, the builder will pay 3 months worth of that amount, so roughly $400. But now you've been in your home for most of the year, it's beautiful, you love it, but then October rolls around and the tax bill arrives. The appraisal district has reassessed your home correctly as land plus improvement, and now it's valued at $1 million. Your new tax bill is $31,865.63. All right, so now you owe $31,000 and some change of which the seller paid $400. Now, he should have paid close to $8,000 for owning the home for the first 3 months, but no, he paid, just the $400. Now, here's what you need to know. Every builder knows this happens, and they all have different ways of dealing with it. If you're buying from Antares, okay, they say taxes shall be prorated to the closing date. If the taxing authorities are unable to quote the amount of actual property taxes for the current year, the proration of taxes shall be based on actual taxes on the property for the prior year. The proration of taxes shall be final and not subject to adjustment due to a subsequent change in actual taxes owed or otherwise. Now, if you're buying from Centex Homes, you're going to find something similar. They say all real estate taxes will be prorated as of the closing date. The proration of real estate taxes and assessments will be based on the most recent tax bill issued prior to closing. All prorations will be final and not subject to adjustment after closing. Okay, so that's Antares and Centex. Let's see what Bloomfield has to say. If you're buying from Bloomfield, their contract reads all taxes for the current year based upon the preceding year's taxes. If the taxes for the current year have not been set, shall be prorated as of the date of closing of this contract. But then you have Normandy Homes. And as much as we gave them a bad rap on their convenience and escalation clauses, they did a solid on how they deal with property taxes. Their contract reads, if the amount credited at closing is based upon an estimate and the actual tax bill received after closing varies from the estimate and that purchaser is owed more than the credit received, purchaser shall have until March 31 of the year immediately following the year of closing to send written notice to seller seeking reimbursement for the difference between what was paid by the seller and what was actually owed by the seller. Remember, builders know exactly how property tax assessments work. They know there will be inequities. And with that full knowledge, they've built these clauses into their contracts. So in this case, kudos to Normandy for their square dealing, and to Antares, Centex, and Bloomfield. You could probably do better. Let's talk about yet another outrageous clause you're going to find in builder contracts. Let's talk about what happens if you can't close on time. Remember how we mentioned the TREC promulgated contract, the one used with pre-owned homes, how it's designed to benefit both buyer and seller uniformly? Well, in the TREC contract, it's not super specific on how to extend a contract. If it doesn't close on time, essentially the contract just ends. The buyers and sellers can kind of choose to, extend it at certain terms, which they pick, or they can go their separate ways. But as you might expect, our new construction contracts are going to be written to benefit the builder, and if you can't close on time, it is definitely going to cost you. If you're working with Bloomfield, you'll read, if the purchaser fails to timely close as provided herein, the parties agree that the contract price of the property will increase by $100 per day, starting on the 5th day after substantial completion. Now, how about Normandy Homes? How does Normandy approach a buyer who can't close on time? Well, the Normandy contract reads, if purchaser fails to close on the closing date, in addition to and without precluding any other remedies, purchaser shall pay seller $250 for each day from the closing date until purchaser closes on the property. So $100 a day, $250 a day. Okay, this is sounding pretty painful, but hang on, because K. Hovnanian takes the cake on this one, okay? If you can't close on time with K. Hovnanian, it's gonna set you back by $500 per day. Their contract reads this way: if purchaser asks to delay the closing date for any reason, including due to delays caused by purchaser's lender, and seller agrees to same, then purchaser agrees to pay seller an extension fee equal to $500 times the number of calendar days from the scheduled closing date until the extended closing date, and purchaser will forfeit any incentives applied by seller. So I'm thinking you can tell by now builders mean business when it comes to closing on time. But on to our next outrageous clause, let's talk about appraisals. Investopedia defines an appraisal this way. It is an unbiased professional opinion of a home's value. Now, appraisals are super important to your lender, so they should be to you as well. Your lender will decide how much of a loan they will offer you based on what your home appraises for. So for example, let's just say you're putting 20% down on $1 million home. Okay, you're bringing $200,000 to the table and your lender is ponying up the remaining $800,000. But what if the appraiser says your home is only worth $900,000? Your lender's only gonna hand out 80% of your home's value. So now they're only loaning $720,000. You've agreed to pay $1 million for this home, so now instead of $200,000, you have to bring $280,000 to the table. You might think, now wait a minute, if the home is only worth $900,000, that's all I should be paying for it. The builder just needs to come down on their price to what the home is actually worth. Well, you can think that all you want, okay? But the truth of the matter is, it's not going to matter what you think. It's going to matter what the contract reads. So how do these builders address this issue of appraisals? Well, Normandy makes it pretty simple in their contract, okay? They say in some instances, the appraised value of the real estate may be lower than the purchase price. Purchaser understands, acknowledges, and agrees that seller will not reduce the purchase price or contribute in any way to an appraisal shortage of the real estate. Grand Homes has their own way of saying essentially the same thing. They say seller makes no representation or warranty with regard to the appraised value of the home. If the appraised value of the home is less than the purchase price and the amount of the loan is reduced by the lender, then purchaser shall pay that difference between the reduced loan amount and the purchase price in cash at closing. Kay Hovnanian puts it this way: purchaser acknowledges that the final appraisal of the property may be less than the purchase price. In the event that the appraisal is lower than the purchase price, purchaser shall increase the earnest money deposit or pay the difference between the appraisal and the purchase price in cash at closing. Purchaser further acknowledges that seller is not required to reduce the purchase price of the property if the appraisal is lower than expected. Now I have to tell you, by and far, the best explanation and most transparent rendering I've seen when it comes to appraisals is by Bloomfield Homes. Most builder contracts may include a few sentences, or at most that paragraph, about appraisals, but Bloomfield devotes an entire page of their contract explaining what an appraisal is and how it works. In the end, they have the same verbiage, right? If there is a low appraisal, Bloomfield Homes will not reduce the price. Still, they at least explain it in detail, okay? And in fact, we were recently negotiating a contract in South Fort Worth, and the sales consultant there took 5 to 10 minutes explaining what an appraisal is, what it's used for, and what can happen if it closes. In this whole realm of new construction, you'll have sales consultants who will answer questions with, like, I've been in the business for 15 years and this is just how it works, which, like we said before, that's really not much more than a form of intimidation. All the way over to sales consultants like we found with Bloomfield, okay, where she took the time to thoroughly explain every step. And not only that, okay, it was her day off. She came in to sign a contract with our out-of-state buyers on her day off and took that much time. So great job, Bloomfield. Now, I've only mentioned 4 builders here, but I can tell you right now, every new construction contract I have read to date, all of them, essentially say the same thing. They are not going to lower the sales price if the appraisal comes in low. Now I have to tell you, knowing these outrageous contract clauses is really only a first step in understanding the risks involved with buying new construction. There are a lot of lies and half-truths that go into new construction, and you can find out all about them in this video, which you may want to watch next. In the meantime, Wendy out.